generation, President Buhari calls on all Nigerians to be alive to their tax obligation as it directs the FIRS to fully deploy technology to block revenue leakages. The Nigeria Governors Forum is looking into vaccine procurement and administration amidst concerns over the perceived slow commencement of vaccination and, of course, claims by Kogi State Governor that the vaccines might be dangerous. Hello and welcome. You're watching Politics Today live on Channels Television. I am Kayode Okikiolu here in Lagos. Well, in 2019, Nigeria's Minister of Finance said that what we have is a revenue problem and not a debt problem. Now, that was just months before the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world and caused oil prices to fall to its lowest in many years. So that meant that Nigeria's revenue problem, which was a major challenge already, got even more complicated, so much so that this year's budget has over 5 trillion naira deficit, which we have to finance using loans, essentially. But then some have said that we can also look inwards and try to cut the cost of governance and block revenue leakages. That's if we're serious about boosting revenue generation. And the question is, how far have we gone with that? Well, earlier today, President Muhammadu Buhari directed the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, and other revenue collection agencies to deploy more digital platforms in blocking these holes and ensuring strict compliance of tax payments by foreign companies operating in the country. Well, at the first National Tax Dialogue held at the Conference Hall of the State House, the President ordered all government agencies to automate operations and ensure more synergy in advancing the interest of the nation in revenue generation. Take a listen.
This administration is, however, not seeking to increase the tax burden upon the citizens, but to plug the existing tax loopholes or leakages and to ensure even an equitable application of the tax laws. Nigeria has a tax to GDP ratio of about 6%. We are still far from reaching our optimal tax revenue generation potential. There is therefore a lot that we can and must do to improve tax revenue receipts. Every Nigerian must see tax payment in its proper context, which is as a solemn and patriotic obligation that is necessary for building a better society. No nation has ever made progress without having to pay for it or make the necessary sacrifice. I therefore call on all Nigerians to be alive to their tax obligations.
So that's the president speaking there. But why do people evade taxes, you may ask? Well, so many reasons have been given, but experts say that one of them is as a result of a failure in their social contract with government, which essentially means that people submit to the authority of government in exchange for provision of basic amenities and, very importantly, their security. But too many times they have been let down by the government. So as we seek to block those leakages and ensure people stick to their end of the bargain, government also needs to honor the part of their contract. Now, speaking of government, the heads of the 36 states of the Federation recently held a meeting, the first in the new year. And tonight we'll be looking at how the outcome of that meeting will affect you. Well, that's if you reside in any of those states or you have concerns in those states. Well, the issues they discussed range from the COVID-19 response in the face of the second wave, specifically plans for vaccine rollout and how states will participate. They also discussed the Nigeria Agenda 2050 and the Medium-Term National Development Plan, MTNDP. You remember it? Well, it's meant to succeed Vision 2020. And of course, the ERGP 2017 to 2020. And not forgetting the big one, revenue generation. So, as you'll expect, the forum put out an 11-point communique highlighting some of these issues. It was signed by the chairman, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State. So let's go beyond the highlights and give you an in-depth view. And to do just that, we're joined by Governor Fayemi on the program tonight. Good evening, and thank you for joining us, Your Excellency. Well, just before we get into the outcome...
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. Just before we get to the outcome of that meeting which you had yesterday, incidentally, you also spoke at the FIRS tax summit, if I can say that, where we saw the president speaking earlier. And, we know that we're not doing well enough in terms of raking in taxes. But, I brought up that issue, which a lot of experts have talked about, of the social contract between people and the government. You're the head of a government. Just how hard is it really for governments to keep to their end of the bargain when it comes to the social contract which they have with the people? Yes, please go ahead.
Well, thank you, Kadi. Well, yes, I spoke at the tax conference this morning. And to answer your question specifically, we all agree that there is a deficit of trust between the governed and the leaders. And there must be a direct correlation between tax generated and development in the various states. When you have a situation in which the population is largely responsible for their own security, for their water supply, for their electricity supply via generators, via boreholes, then that increases the deficit of trust. And what we in the Nigerian Governors Forum have focused on in the last few years is to increase the level of correlation between the resources available to us and the development experienced by our people. And that's also why we've signed up to the SIFTOS program, which enhances transparency and accountability of states by publishing our accounts and making sure that they're on our website and available to the people publicly, and also ensuring that we increase the level of capital expenditure in our state vis-a-vis recurrent expenditure while collecting our taxes more efficiently and in an automated fashion, just as the president urged in his speech this morning. So we do not disagree with that notion that we need to increase the level of correlation between taxes collected from people so that they can see it in the development around them, whether it's in education or in social investment or in physical infrastructure in the state and nationally. The people must feel that their tax is working for them.
Okay. Now that we've at least tried to get that out of the way, let's get into the meeting which you had with other governors. I'm looking at the communique and the 11 points that came out of that meeting. But interestingly, just before that meeting, a statement was put out. And it starts by saying that the NGF is alarmed by what you call Nigeria's tardy commencement of inoculation, which we all know as vaccine. And it was said in that statement that you plan to come up with a definitive pronouncement on the way forward. So you've had the meeting. What's the NGF's position concerning the way forward?
Well, we had the meeting yesterday. All my colleagues were present, but we also invited experts. We invited representatives of the Presidential Task Force to brief us concretely on what the plan is. You see, we can all have a wish list about vaccination. We can have hope, but hope is not a plan. Hope is not a strategy. We need to be a lot more concrete about what we're going to do in order to ensure that the vaccines are available to a large percentage of our population, which, according to Africa CDC, should be roughly about 60 to 70% of our population in order for us to attain herd immunity. And that's really what the focus of our meeting yesterday was. We were able to get concrete information because we spoke to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who up till recently chairs the Global Alliance on Vaccine and Immunization, and she assured us that Gavi will make available in the first instance enough vaccine to cover 20% of our population. And you can do the maths. You know what 20% of our population is. But we're still going to 60, 70%. So we need to figure out how we're going to get the remaining 50% if we get 20% from the COVAX arrangement being put together by Gavi and the WHO and the Coalition for Vaccination in the world. So we were able to get that, but we were also able to learn from the Presidential Task Force that they're working on purchasing vaccines as well. The one they're tilting towards is the AstraZeneca, which would align more appropriately to our own refrigeration capacity in Nigeria. And virtually many of our primary health care centers and secondary health care facilities have solar direct vaccination refrigerators in the various states. So that's what is being targeted. But if we are to go for Pfizer, and I believe the first 100,000 doses that will come into the country is likely to be Pfizer, they would have to specifically direct that at the frontline health workers before we then step to the next level, which is those who are 55 and above, and then those who have comorbidities or what we non-medical people call underlying issues, and before it then gets to the general population. So that's we have confirmed would happen. The challenge is how soon is this going to happen? Gavi, according to Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, has made it clear to us at the NGF that by the end of February, we should get the first batch of vaccines coming to Nigeria. But you see, it's not so much getting the vaccine that is the challenge. It's also the logistics of administering the vaccines. I've talked about the refrigeration side of it, right, but also there is the skilled workers aspect of the administration. We need to mobilize the workers. We need to train them properly for this. Luckily, we have some experience because we've done polio vaccination and we continue to do routine immunization in the country. So we're not that much of a tabula rasa in this area. And we met at the National Economic Council today, where we formed a committee to really drill down and get to the specifics of this implementation, chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, with myself, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister of Health, and then two of my colleagues, the Governor of Lagos and the Governor of Delta State, would work out those plans along with the Presidential Task Force that is working on this already.
Okay, we're due for a break in about a minute, but let me get your opening thoughts, because we have the PTF and then there's the NPHCDA, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. You just mentioned NEC, the subcommittee, which is headed by the Governor of Delta State. So in terms of this rollout process, what specific roles will state governments be playing?
Well, you know,
Please go on.
Kadi, it's the majority of the people who are going to be at the receiving end, they live in states, they reside in states. So we are not only going to be the frontline health workers, it's our workers in our various health facilities, be they in our tertiary institutions, our secondary or primary health institutions, and we need to get them prepared for this. When NCDC releases numbers every day, they only talk about the number of positivity in states. That's what you read in your newspapers or see on your television. So it speaks to the fact that states are very critical to this process, and our partnership with the federal agencies would be the make or break in ensuring successful implementation of the vaccine.
Okay, Governor Fayemi, just a moment.
With the MPHCDA on that.
I think that's a major crux of the matter, but we need to go on a break, as I said earlier. And when we return, we'll try and look into these details, because they say the devil is in the details, right? Because if we're going to ensure that this is done right, then we need to ensure that proper collaboration is put on board. So please stay with us, Governor Fayemi, as we go on this break. And when we return, we'll take a look at some of the issues regarding the vaccine and some other things that have come up regarding states in recent times. Please stay with us.
We should not be deceived again. Enough is enough. We should tell them that they should keep their COVID-19 to themselves. We don't need that market in Nigeria. Vaccines have been produced in less than 1 year of COVID-19. No vaccine for HIV, malaria, for cancer, for headache, and for several other diseases that are killing us. We don't have vaccine. They want to use the vaccine to introduce the disease that will kill you and us. God forbid.
Welcome back to the program. We have with us the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum and the governor of Ekiti State, Governor Kayode Fayemi. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you for staying with us on the program, Governor Fayemi. Well, you have listened, I believe, to the governor of Kogi State, and clearly, in spite of all the scientific evidence which we have gathered over a year now in this battle against COVID-19, he still has his reservations. He says, God forbid, he believes that this vaccine is being introduced to kill. So what is your response to that?
Frankly, Kayode, I really don't want to go into this. The only reason why I would go into this is because we occupy responsible leadership positions and we occupy positions of trust. So when our citizens are concerned about their health care, I don't think the most appropriate way to respond is to be dismissive of the fears amongst the citizenry. I can assure you that the preponderance of views at the level of the Nigerian Governors Forum believes that COVID-19 is real, and we need to respond to the challenges that have emanated from the pandemic. And this is not just a health issue for us, it's an economic issue, it's a security issue. And it behoves us as leaders to work in concert and in unity with the federal authorities in order to get to the bottom of this problem, which is not a Nigerian problem. So if the intention is to eliminate Nigerians for whatever reasons, if you were to believe the approach taken by my brother and neighbor from Kogi State, then it's a case of believe this, you believe anything. I think as leaders, we have a duty, we have a responsibility to protect every of our citizens. And people are dying from COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. The positivity rate is increasing. And at our meeting yesterday, many of my colleagues expressed their fears about this and the need for us to take appropriate measures, including ensuring that the vaccines get to Nigeria quickly. We can go into the politics and diplomacy of vaccination. We can go into politics of health care. That there's a place for that. But the reality has to be dealt with. How do we stem the tide of Nigerians dying? I understand those who also feel we should not just give up because of COVID-19 and not continue to run our lives and run our economy. We don't want a complete lockdown in the economy. And we're also not talking just about pharmaceutical responses to COVID-19. We're talking about non-pharmaceutical responses as well, which is what has necessitated the promotion of nose mask wearing, the promotion of social distancing, and the promotion of reduction in the number of public engagements that we indulge in. It's for the good of our people. People are dying, even in Kogi State. And we have a duty to protect all Nigerians. And if this is what the Governors Forum is doing, in concert with other agencies of the federal government, we have no apology about that. And we will continue to appeal to our brother. He may have a difference of opinion, which he is entitled to, not to risk the lives of his own citizens.
Right. So back to the talk about the role of states in vaccine rollout. I know that during the meeting, you set up a team of experts to essentially advise governors on the procurement and administration of coronavirus vaccines in the country. And the question will be, are states also looking into procuring vaccines? Because I recall that recently you launched some cold equipment to keep vaccines. So are states looking to procure?
Well, we will not rule against states looking to procure, because one of the things that we also did at our meeting yesterday was to allow private sector representatives to speak to us about their capacity to procure vaccines if we're going to experience any delay in the joint procurement that may be available via COVAX for lower income and lower middle income countries in the world. Even if that is available, as I said earlier, it's not likely to be enough for Nigeria to attain herd immunity. So we would be happy if there are those who want to provide the vaccine on a private basis and then make available to states. If it necessitates that, yes, states will do it, because even the federal government that has decided via the PTF to procure in order to meet the balance of what is not available via COVAX. I'm not sure we have a budget earmarked for that yet, but there may be a supplementary budget for it. The reason why we put the committee led by Professor Yewale Tomori, a very renowned virologist, together is to be able to really advise us on not just immediate procurement of vaccines, but also on long-term production of vaccine locally. The Pasteur Institute in Senegal produces vaccine. The Human Science Research Council in South Africa produces vaccine. We used to produce vaccine in VOM in the early 1900s up to the 70s. And there is a federal government, May and Baker joint initiative, BioVaccines, to produce vaccines locally, to manufacture vaccines locally. There's no reason why we shouldn't be working in that direction, because ultimately we need to ensure that we have our own vaccine independence rather than vaccine dependence on other places. The way India, Pakistan and other countries have already lined up to produce the AstraZeneca vaccines for their own population in their countries.
Well, quite a number of issues really to raise with COVID-19 vaccine and the rollout. But another challenge we're faced with in the country is insecurity. And I know the governors have spoken time and again about this. So I'd like to just find out, what is the NGF's position really on the ultimatum that was given by one of your members to herders in the states to vacate the forest reserves? I'm talking about the governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu. What's the position of the NGF regarding that? Because it concerns security, which you have spoken about as well.
We would always be concerned about security, and we're working with all the institutions of state responsible for security to ensure that those who are involved in criminal enterprise in Nigeria are apprehended and brought to book. That is the position of the NGF on all the multivarious insecurity situations we have found ourselves. You've seen me in Borno, you've seen me in Katsina, you've seen me in many other states. I'm from the Southwest. I'm part of the Amoteco initiative that Southwest governors have launched in their individual states in order to attenuate the upsurge in situations of insecurity. So the interest of NGF is not to engage in political brickbats. It is to stem the tide of insecurity in the country, and that remains our position.
Well, I think essentially I'm asking if you're backing the governor of Ondo State in that pronouncement, or you're choosing to stay away from it, essentially.
That's why I said to you that we're not interested in political brickbats, Kayode. We're interested in solving a problem. This is a problem that is pervasive all over the country. We have met times without number with security institutions. We have met with the president. We have profiled our solutions to this, and we continue to engage the authorities in this. If the interest of the governor of Ondo State is to protect the citizens that have elected him to office, you cannot quarrel with him over that. But in doing that, there is also the need to strictly adhere to the laws of the land.
Well, Governor Kayode Fayemi, the Chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, and the Governor of Ekiti State, I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program tonight, and we do appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. To have a good night. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Don't forget to stay safe as well.